Secretary CAMM, and Rachel, our CCS Technical Group Liaison. We'll be monitoring this chat, or the chat. So if you want to raise your hand to speak, we'll do our best to see that you're heard. Also, a quick reminder that we won't be meeting again until August 16th, 2023. So let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any revisions or additions to the February 15th, 2023 minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll approve the minutes. And are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, it's time to approve our 2023-2024 CAMM officer nominees. So we had one nominee for each office, and we will go ahead and accept them. In addition to Tammy Sprzinski of Grays Lake serving as the chair of CAMM, we will also have Kim Nevins, who will be our vice chair, chair-elect from Zion Benton, and the secretary will be Adrienne Galindo from Palatine. So congratulations to our new officers and thanks for volunteering. And now it's time for the CCS staff reports, starting with Rachel.
Good morning, everyone. The full staff report is in the packet. I'll just summarize the report today. The training server was scheduled to be upgraded to 7.4 today. That should be finished in about an hour, but then we will do an extensive amount of QA testing to make sure there aren't any major bugs. That should be done in multiple rounds. So Polaris does their testing at Innovative and we'll do our testing. And if all goes well, the production upgrade will be scheduled for August 7th or 8th. This will add the functions that I demonstrated at the cataloging webinar in April, as well as serials functions like printing serials labels and creating the publication patterns. I will be scheduling serials in the training soon. I just had to schedule Warren Newport's training first. And I hope to be able to fit this in the last 2 weeks of July or the beginning of August. Links to resources are in the packet. I finished loading the records from Backstage that had all of the homosaurus headings in them. So now all records that are categorized as LGBTQ+ topics in the diversity audit tool have homosaurus headings in them, as long as they had equivalent Library of Congress headings in their records. 6 CCS libraries have tried Rail's new world cataloging service and plan to continue using it. There's more information on their opinion in the packet. There is a reminder that was sent to me earlier today or yesterday. So there are some local genre headings for dyslexia-friendly books that you can use. We've seen some records come in with dyslexia-friendly font that do not have those genre headings. It's a local genre heading. So please do include those in the records. You can also include a note about the font. It does need to be in the 546 subfield A field so that the field is indexed and displays in the full view of the record in the pack. The subfield B is unfortunately not indexed. Virginia was not able to attend the meeting today. Her report is in the packet. Her report includes information on subheadings or new subject headings, fictitious character changes, and records loaded from Marchive. The project to change all the genre headings from the second indicator of 0 to 7 has been completed. There's also a link to all of the homosaurus terms in the CCS catalog for you to check out. A lot of new terms have been added because of the Backstage project. Is there any questions about the staff report?
Okay, we could move on to the scrap reports. Rachel?
Okay. Links to the recording and the minutes of the April 19th meeting are in the packet. Scrap decided not to include the media tie-ins headings as local headings that all libraries can use. A library who's interested in using them can add a local heading in the 691 field. Scrap will need 3 new members for next year. A call to nominate advisory group members will be sent out to the listservs later in the month. If you are interested in cataloging policies, please consider nominating yourself. Meetings will continue to be held virtually next year. Are there any questions?
Okay, now we are going to move on to demos.
We do have a question in the chat. Kathy asks, how long are the scrap terms? So the term is really up to you. You can just do it for 1 year. If you'd like to do it for a year, if you don't want to come back a second year, you're welcome to decide not to come back a second year. We've had some people in scrap for as long as 3 years because we don't have enough nominees. So please do consider nominating yourself for scrap because we are definitely in need of nominees every year.
All right, I don't see any more questions, so should we move on to the demos?
All right, great. 1 second while I share my screen and get set up. Okay, so you should now be seeing the client. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. So acquisitions staff have pointed out that when records are merged for multi-volume sets that have duplicates that are monographs records for the single volume, holds are not always being transferred in a way that properly retains the volume number. So when you normally merge duplicate records for monographs, it will be fine because it's not containing the volume data. But if you're merging a multi-volume set record over the duplicate that's a monograph record, you do need to be a bit more careful and use a process for transferring holds so that the dialog box will pop up to allow you to select a specific volume. So I've set up two holds as tests to demonstrate. I'm going to demonstrate it both in the client and then in Leap so that you can see how it's done in both programs. So I've already searched for my ISBN in the Find tool for Return of the Jedi. And you can see here that there are 2 records. One of them has a hold on it. So I'm going to open up this record with the hold to access the hold. You can access the holds queue from the links drop-down menu and click on holds queue. Here's my test hold. So I'm going to click on it to open up the record. And if you open up the tools drop-down menu, you can see this button for transfer. So I clicked on the button and the dialog boxes will pop up. To make sure I want to continue, I'm going to press yes. So now I need to find the record that I need to transfer it to. So I'm going to click on the Find button by title and search for that Volume 1 ISBN. And now I'm going to click on the multi-volume set record at the top and press Save. So this is a dialog box for selecting holds. It's Volume 1, so I'm going to select Volume 1 and then press OK. And then save the record again. And you can see that Volume 1 is now in the details of the hold record by the volume, and it has the correct ISBN for Volume 1. After that, you can safely merge the records. So now I'm going to open up Leap. I've already searched for Volume 3 in Leap. I'm going to open up this record that you can see it has one item record and one hold. To access the holds queue, you can click on links and then click on holds queue. This is my test hold that I've created. I'm going to click on it to open it. And you will find the transfer button under the actions drop-down menu. I'm just going to copy this ISBN here first, and then press transfer. Now I need to search for that ISBN for Volume 3. And we'll select this multi-volume set record. So the dialog box will pop up, making sure that you want to transfer, and I'll press transfer. And then you'll see the next dialog box to select a volume. And this is for Volume 3, so I'll select Volume 3 and press continue. So you can see that the Volume 3 has been saved in the holds record properly, and you can close that. And now you can safely merge the records. Are there any questions? Sandy?
Hi. So when I have attempted to do this in the past, let's say that there's a multi-volume record for volumes 1 to 3. We've ordered volume 4 and it somehow got onto, a separate monograph record and I want to merge them. When I go to transfer the hold, both Leap and the client only give me the options for volume 1 to 3. It doesn't give me the option to transfer it to volume 4.
You need to make sure that the item record is linked properly to the multi-volume set record in order to be able to transfer it.
I do. And even after I have moved the item over to the multi-volume record, I'm only given the options for volume 1 to 3 and not the volume 4.
It's also possible that the settings in that new record could be limiting who can place a hold on it if it's new. So that might be causing the problem.
Well, I mean, I can ultimately place a hold on it, but the only way I can do it is by going into the member's record, deleting the old hold and replacing a new hold from scratch. I can't transfer.
Okay. If you encounter that again, can you create a help desk ticket so that we can check it out?
Sure.
Kathy asks, can multiple holds be transferred at once, or do they need to be done one at a time? If there are already holds in the holds queue for the title, they are being transferred to where are they in line? So when you are transferring multiple holds at a time, there is a way in Leap to sort by the date that they were placed so that you can keep them in order when you transfer the holds. And you can transfer multiple holds at a time, but if you are working with multi-volume set records, I think it's easier to make sure that you're attaching it to the right volume if you transfer those one at a time. And there is instructions on how to do that in the website. I've linked to the page on transferring holds in the packet. Are there any other questions on transferring holds?
Okay, our next demo, Rachel.
Okay, let's see. One moment. We've received some tickets asking to add images to library things items. Synthetix is willing to add images to the catalog for items that have UPCs if you can provide the necessary information and images to them. So to make it easier for you to do, I've provided a link to a template that you can use to format that information. This includes the title, bibliographic control number, the UPC, a link to an image, which you can find on a website called images.barcodelookup.com, and a thumbnail copied from that site. This will make it easier to identify the correct product and image for the catalog. After you've gotten this document sent up, you can create a ticket in the help desk, and either I or Virginia will be able to send the document to Synthetix to make sure that they add the images to the catalog. However, I found they're very slow at adding the images, and sometimes it can take months for them to get through their backlog tickets. Are there any questions?
Okay, I don't see any, so Rachel, would you like to do the final demo?
We do have some questions.
Oh.
Kathy asked, are the images on the recommended website covered by copyright? I have not looked into that. That may be the case, but I think that if they are, Synthetix would look into that and know whether they can use it or not. Vicky asks for the link. So in the packet, there is a link to this document. And I will copy a link to this page from this document and place it in the chat. So that link doesn't work. 1 second. Let me get the right link. Okay, this link that I just pasted in the chat for barcodelookup.com works.
Excellent. Okay, simply report item count reports for stat codes.
Okay. 1 second. Let me switch websites. Okay. So we had a request for a demonstration of how to run reports on statistical codes in Simply Reports. So today I will demonstrate how you can gather statistics on the statistical codes that are used in your item records as an item count report. I've included links to resources for you to review in the packet. Item count reports can tabulate the total number of item records that have a specific combination of settings in the item records that you want output to your data. You can use this to just gather statistics, but if you also are interested in correcting potential errors in your item records, you could create a report of a specific combination and look for any potential errors like a romance statistical code that could be on a book that's on a shelf in the wrong location. Like if someone placed romance in a nonfiction shelf location, you might want to take a look at that and correct that item and make sure it's in the correct location. So I've logged into Simply Reports, and to navigate to the correct report, you would click on Items in the first tab and Item Count Reports in the second tab. So today I'm going to output several different pieces of data from an item record so that you can see additional rows output. So I'm going to start with the item assigned collection name. The shelf location. The item shelf location, and the item statistical code. And I'll place them in alphabetical order by moving them to the column selected for sort. And they'll be sorted in the order that the columns are output into the column selected for sort. And then next I will select my filters. So I will choose Gray's Lake. And so that there's less rows in the report at one time, I will select the adult fiction and nonfiction sections. And in order to make sure there aren't any deleted item records, I will select the record status of final and press submit. So from here, you can check the box to download the report and then click on the icon to download it. You can open up the report in Excel. And as you review your data, you can look for anything that could be a potential error, or if you need to produce a statistical table, you may want to do that in Excel because you would be able to calculate percentages in Excel. Are there any questions?
Hey, I don't see any. Thank you, Rachel. Should we move on to new business then? Rachel, did you want to talk about overlaying records?
Yes, so we received a question in our agenda submission form when overlaying records are ISBNs being deleted if a library only has one type of book, like one hardcover with just a hardcover ISBN in it. So that depends on how your import profile is set up, or if you're importing from Z3950. So if you are importing records from OCLC and merging the duplicates, and the import profile and the duplication process is not set up to retain all of those ISBNs. So I recommend adding all of the ISBNs from the record in the client to your incoming record before you import it. However, if you are importing on order records from vendors, the import profiles do retain the O2O field when it detects a duplicate. And this does cause a lot of duplicate O2Os to appear in the on order record. And this can get quite lengthy if you're dealing with multi-volume set records, and a lot of multi-volume set records are merged. You could have like 100 rows of ISBNs and O35s that need to be cleaned up, which is why the import profiles for the final record are not retaining those ISBNs because it would have a lot of duplicates. So it's something to watch for when you overlay your final records over the on order records. Are there any questions?
Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Rachel. Now Jessica Thompson has a question for the group. Jessica?
Jessica was not able to come today, so I'm going to be speaking on her behalf. There is a question in the chat from the previous item. Vicky asked if we see a record with a lot of ISBNs, can they be deleted? Yes, you are welcome to delete any duplicate fields like ISBNs or O35 fields. Feel free to help clean up records if you see that they need to be cleaned up. Carly asked, should we delete the ISBNs for ebooks if it's a record for a hard copy? Yes, that would be very helpful if you could delete the ebook ISBNs, because that could bring up additional records when you press the deduplication button. Adrian asked, should the O2Os with price information be retained? You can retain them if a library does not have a 970 field with a price. The price from the subfield C does get added to a purchase order, so it could be potentially helpful for some libraries. Let's see. So the question that Jessica asked was, would there be any benefit to creating a technical services reports guidelines like the circulation report guidelines for cataloging. And if so, which reports would you like me to include in it that you think everyone should do on a regular basis? So these could be either reports in web reports or running SQL queries, or reports that you find useful in Simply Reports. We do have a question from Adrian in the chat. What kinds of reports do other libraries, technical services departments run regularly? Sandy? I see your hand up.
Thanks. We run a report every few months looking for any record with a date like more than 3 months ago that's still reading in process. So that's something that's potentially backlogged that needs to be moved along, but in some cases is something that's already been cataloged and is out on the shelf, but our sorter just didn't check it in when it went through the belt. But either way, we clear those up.
Kathy wrote in the chat that item price equals $0. Is that a SQL query? Kit typed a long list of SQLs that he uses in the chat. Let's on the fly by branch, suspicious toms, blank collection, stat codes, when others have a volume and you don't. I definitely recommend the one for when others have a volume and you don't. PDRs with available items created by your library. Oh, Kathy said that report for item price equals $0 is in Simply Reports for physical items only. Okay. Adrian says it would be helpful to have those guidelines available to everyone. How often do you feel that these reports should be run? Do you run them monthly or weekly? Okay, Kathy runs them monthly.
Okay, anybody else? So is that something then we need to have a motion for?
We don't need to do that. I can work on creating the website and I'll send it out for feedback.
All right. Well, thank you, Rachel. Now I guess we could move on to Tammy.
Good morning, everyone. From Rachel's demonstration on the stat codes, you could see Grays Lake uses a lot of stat codes. And we were curious to see how other libraries in the consortium are using stat codes, because we were debating putting in a request for a DEI stat code. We're trying to figure out how we can incorporate that more into our cataloging practices. And we came across a book called When the Moon Turns Blue. It's by Pamela Terry. And just looking at the record, the subject headings are great for the book, but they're very specific and they wouldn't lead you to find other books on DEI subject matter or themes, tones to the book. And we really wanted a way to capture that. So we were debating using statistical codes. However, maybe there are subject headings that we're not thinking of, or we just wanted to put it out there and see how other libraries are using their stats codes. Right now, we're currently we have our fiction divided into fiction, mystery, romance, and science fiction. For our nonfiction, we just go with the Dewey numbers, ranges, and we wouldn't be thinking of using the stat code for nonfiction items. It would just be for fiction. We currently will divide our fiction instead of, if it's a mystery, romance, sci-fi, we just use those stat codes. However, we do use LGBTQ if that's a main theme or main characters fall into that. We do use fantasy stat code. We use thriller to differentiate why we didn't place it in the mystery collection. So I just wanted to bring up a discussion here if we could, or if anybody wants to email me at tammyski, TAMMYSKI @grayslake.info, and just let me know how you're using your stat codes, because we'd really be interested. So were there any questions or?
Hi, Tammy. Kathy from McHenry. No questions, but I'm following this whole thread with great interest because at our library, we're looking to come up with the best practices and standardize how we use our stat codes. We found that we have a lot of carryover usage from when we were with Symphony and how everything translated into Polaris, and questioning whether or not that's still best serving our patrons and our staff. So I know my lead cataloger, Shirley Reutberg, has been reaching out to try to find out how other libraries are using these and what they're doing with them, so that we can come up with something that would be meaningful for our patrons. End result. I mean, honestly, I was told that the stat codes are a facet in the pack, but I don't know if that's true or not. And that's something that I've heard from many years ago from coming live on Polaris. So, I mean, whatever decisions we make, if it's going to be impacting public-facing features, that's important then in terms of how we use stuff. And, kind of then creates another kind of question. Do we have free reign over our stat codes, or should we be looking at standardizing them a little more, especially if it does impact a public-facing service?
Well, you definitely bring up some interesting points. Rachel, do you have an answer on?
Standardizing stat codes is definitely a challenge. I know that multiple libraries have had problems with that transition of stat codes from Horizon to Polaris and making sure that they're standardized. Let's see, we do have some comments in the chat. Carlin says, I have not seen stat codes on our pack, but is that a library specific choice? I haven't heard of stat codes as a facet in the pack before. I'll have to ask Kathleen about that to see if it's an option. Adrian says Palatine does fill out the stat code field in the item record, but doesn't actively utilize them. We find that there are other ways to run reports and find items like shelf locations and call numbers. I think they're the most useful if you wanted to gather collection related statistics on the DOE decades or genres that are used as stat codes. And I think that some selectors are assigned specific stat codes to use for selecting purposes, or have like specific DOE ranges, and they might use the stat codes for running reports for their selection area.
Yeah, it's helpful with weeding too, I believe, for selectors.
Yes, weeding.
Are there other methods that libraries are using to indicate books would fall into a DEI subject matter? For fiction.
Well, I know Palatine has local subject headings that they use in the 691 field. They have like BIPOC subject, BIPOC author, LGBTQ subject, LGBTQ author, and so forth.
Correct. I would probably be interested then in making it a little more broader so that it wouldn't just be related to BIPOC or LGBTQ subject matter. The book that I referenced is more about cultural change in our country that's happening right now. And that's why I wasn't finding a universal genre heading for it. But if you think a local genre heading would be better than a stat code, I am open to that.
Yeah, you're welcome to create a ticket and ask Virginia what she thinks about that subject heading idea.
Okay.
Brian Christensen asks, are there specific stat codes assigned to particular media? For example, is drama only for multimedia, DVD, Blu-rays, or can it be used for print too? It's up to the library to decide what stat codes to use for their local policy. We don't have specific stat codes that libraries have to use. There are some libraries that don't use stat codes at all. Kit says that they use stat codes broadly in combination with other item record fields to compile their statistics.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your feedback.
Thank you, Tammy. Does anyone else have any more questions? Because if not, it's time for open forum. Are there any other technical services related topics that someone would like to discuss? Okay, I see none. Are there any announcements? that anyone would like to make before we adjourn?
Grace Lake, we have a new cataloger. Vivian Flores. So she's not in the meeting right now, but we are excited that we've filled our open position.
Excellent. All right. Okay, well then, there are no more questions. We will meet next time, August 16th via Zoom at 9:30 a.m. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I think
Kathy? Okay, excellent. And do I have a second? Kit? Okay, thank you. So we'll adjourn this meeting at 10:16 and thank you everybody for attending. See you in August.